Back in the mid-2000s, Lindsay Lohan was absolutely everywhere. Unless you were living under a rock in the Western world, it was impossible to escape her presence and influence in pop culture. After her breakout role in the 1998 movie The Parent Trap, where she became a household name, Lindsay went from strength to strength in Hollywood as an acclaimed teen actress, starring in films such as Freaky Friday and Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, to cult classic Mean Girls in 2004. Alongside her film success, Lindsay also began to grow her career as a pop singer, releasing 2 albums in 2 years, which both became top 20 hits on the Billboard 200 chart. However, an unfortunate turn in her career involving multiple arrests, struggles with addiction, and earning herself a reputation for being difficult to work with, put what could have been a potentially huge music career on the shelf. A lot of people still love to fixate on Lindsay's mistakes and misfortunes as a case study for how celebrities were treated in the early 2000s, and we'll be touching on that in this video. However, I believe there is a universe in which Lindsay's music career continued to blossom, and that's what we're going to be primarily focusing on in this video. Before we dive in, I just want to give a massive shout out to Mila Tequila for her videos that cover Lindsay's life, including her successes and unfortunate struggles throughout her career. I learned so much about Lindsay that I didn't know before thanks to her work, despite the fact that I was following everything in my teens as it was happening. I also just want to say that despite some poor choices and judgment on her part at times, I think everyone at the time, and even now, just want to see Lindsay succeed and be truly happy. She was subjected to some very difficult situations in her personal life, but she's always been a great actress that was at the very forefront of pop culture during my pivotal years of adolescence, and I'm sure that was the same for many of you guys at home watching. So, let's start at the beginning. Lindsay was born in 1986 to parents Dina and Michael Lohan and was thrown into the world of modelling at the tender age of just 3 years old. Around the same time, her father was sent to prison for insider trading on Wall Street, and her parents briefly split due to Michael's drug-fueled domestic violence against his wife. The reason I'm mentioning this in particular is to demonstrate that from the get-go, Lindsay was not afforded a normal childhood by any means. Her relationship with her father in particular is one that we'll come back to later in the video, as it actually shaped some of her music and was the hot topic when it came to discussing Lindsay in terms of tabloid drama back in the mid-2000s. At just 10 years old, Lindsay was cast as a regular on the show Another World, but it wasn't until Lindsay turned 12 that she had her breakout moment in hit Disney movie The Parent Trap. Lindsay beat over 1,500 girls for the starring role, and her acting skills at such a young age were highly acclaimed. She then went on to star in the TV films Life Size and Get a Clue, before starring in big screen productions Freaky Friday and Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, all of which were also Disney productions. In Freaky Friday, Lindsay plays Anna Coleman, a teenager who ends up accidentally switching bodies with her mother. In the film, Anna is in a band called Pink Slip, and Lindsay actually learned to play guitar in order to film the shots where she's playing with her band. Fun fact, she was coached on how to play guitar by the lead guitarist of the band Orgy. Just thought that was interesting to mention. Lindsay recorded a song for the Freaky Friday soundtrack called Ultimate, which you can still find online, and I recommend listening to it because it's like, if you were to open a time capsule from the early 2000s, this song would just start blaring out. It's got that super cheesy Disney pop rock sound, it's got a key change, and honestly, it's just a really fun piece of music. Lindsay also recorded 4 songs for the Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen soundtrack, including the song Drama Queen, That Girl, and it was becoming clear that Disney were keen to push her as a musical artist as well as an actress. Bear in mind that these films came out in 2003 and 2004, when Lindsay was only 17 and 18 years old, and the music that was out at the time by female pop artists included In the Zone by Britney Spears, Under My Skin by Avril Lavigne, Try This by Pink, and Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson. Pushing Lindsay into a pop rock direction was an attempt to place her alongside these artists, and she had a voice that really suited guitar-driven music. Now, despite Lindsay's public profile reaching the stratosphere in 2004, it was actually back in 2002 that the plans were made for Lindsay to be marketed as a music artist as well as an actress. Lindsay was signed by Gloria and Emilio Estefan to a 5-album record deal in September 2002, when large multi-album deals were still a really huge thing in the music industry. However, in 2004, she dropped out of this deal and signed with Casablanca Records under the management of Tommy Mottola, who had worked alongside the likes of Michael Jackson, Jennifer Lopez, Mariah Carey, Destiny's Child, and Shakira, among many others. Lindsay began writing tracks for her upcoming debut album Speak in April 2004, right around the exact time that the film Mean Girls was released in theaters. Mean Girls was also her first film outside of Disney and truly cemented her as a megastar. At this point in time, you could not escape Lohan mania. She was featured in People magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People, became the youngest host ever of the MTV Movie Awards, and she also becomes a Vanity Fair cover star. Lindsay is everywhere. Unfortunately, around the same time as her meteoric rise to stardom fully blossomed, controversy and drama surrounding her personal life started to become the primary focus. Over the next few months, during the summer of 2004, Lindsay's dad Michael finds himself in trouble with the law multiple times, which only further puts the spotlight on Lindsay. At this point in time, Lindsay also turns 18 years old, and it's worth mentioning that her debut album Speak still isn't released at this point. In fact, it doesn't come out until December 2004. The first single from the album, entitled Rumours, is released in September 2004 ahead of the album, and is all about the paparazzi and their impact on her life, with lyrics such as, "Why can't you just let me do the things I want to do? I just want to be me," in response to rumours of her allegedly hooking up with then 24-year-old Wilmer Valderrama when she was just 17, the feud between her and Hilary Duff, which was being fueled by the media, and also rumours of excessive partying and drug taking. In October 2004, the release of the album was delayed due to Lindsay needing to be hospitalized for exhaustion and a high fever of 103 degrees. It was later reported that she'd had a kidney infection, and the album was pushed back from November to the following month. Now we're up to the release of her debut album, Speak. Let's talk about it. Speak was released on December 7th, 2004, and it was the first high seller from Casablanca Records in several years. It sold over 1 million units in the United States, certifying it platinum, and peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200, selling over 260,000 copies in its first week. The second single, Over, was released December 14th, 2004. And this was the only single that was released over here in the UK, which is why I personally remember it so well. I still absolutely adore this song and often come back to it even now because I think it's a really well-written pop song. It's in the key of E flat, and for a pop rock song in 2004, featuring a minor lead verse going into a major lift in the chorus used to send chills down my 12-year-old spine. Lindsay's vocals on this song are awesome and really showcased her talent as a singer. The final single from the album is track 1, called First. The final single was originally supposed to be the title track, Speak, and I'm not sure why it was replaced, but it could be due to First being featured on the Herbie Fully Loaded soundtrack. The movie Herbie Fully Loaded was released in June 2005, so 6 months after the album came out, and also 6 months after the previous single. Already we're seeing where the promo for the album could have been more consistent, but due to Lindsay's schedule, as well as her personal life dominating her career, I get the feeling that the album became a much lower priority for her and her team. Before we continue talking about Lindsay's career further into music, I just have to talk about the reviews this album got. In my opinion, totally undeserved. It was torn to pieces by reviewers, with quotes such as, "Somewhere Avril Lavigne, whose influence is clearly at work here, is rolling her eyes." And this is actually why I wanted to talk about some of Lindsay's controversies. As time went on and Lindsay became more successful and subsequently found herself in tons of drama, public opinion started to wane, and whilst music reviewers will have you believe they're absolutely unbiased and not swayed by external sources, it is almost impossible not to be. When the media pins you as this trashy, bitchy party girl who's dating tons of men, turning up to shoots late, taking substances, etc., when going to review her album, you will have that in the back of your mind when listening. Is it a perfect album? Absolutely not, and I will be doing a more in-depth review over on my Patreon for our Album Club series. But Speak did not deserve the vitriol it got. It has some great songs on it, but this was also back in the mid-2000s when online blogs and articles were absolutely vile to young female stars such as Lindsay, Paris, Britney, etc. And it was totally acceptable, and I'll talk more about that later on in this video. It's also worth noting that out of the 11 tracks on the standard edition, Lindsay is credited with contributing to 4 of them, and some of them are the strongest on the album. She is credited as the main writer for a song called Symptoms of You, which is honestly a highlight on the album. So she was already showing talent as a songwriter, and she would have only been 17 or 18, so great job. Not enough people know that, and I wanted to change it. Despite the controversies that were beginning to take over when it came to her reputation, by mid-2005, Lindsay was still at the center of pop culture. She became the first celebrity to be given their own doll by Mattel, which is a big deal, as Mattel are obviously quite conscious of their image, and entrusting Lindsay as their first celebrity My Scene doll was a big positive. However, this also coincided with a huge increase in online tabloid readership, such as TMZ and Perez Hilton, who began to dedicate their web space to the most scandalous, juicy celebrity gossip, which leads to more invasive paparazzi, more rumors of who Lindsay is dating, what she's potentially taking, and being a bit less biased here, it wasn't as though Lindsay was acting like a wallflower. She was partying a lot, hanging out with people much older than her, and who in my opinion did not have her best interests at heart. Her father also finds himself in more legal trouble, which I won't go too deep into, but it's clear that Lindsay really needs support from people who aren't just out to exploit her, and it's really from here on out that she begins to have a pretty tough few years ahead of her, which is such a shame as it was beginning to look as though she was at the start of a very successful career. She's still only 19 at this point, and I think it's so easy to forget that when looking back at the controversies she was involved in. In June 2005, just after the final single from Speak is released, Lindsay begins writing material for her second album, saying, "I've been writing a lot, almost every night. There's been a lot going on, and I think people can find that escape in hobbies that they do. I don't do yoga or anything, but some people use that. Everyone has their own thing, and I use writing." It really seems as though Lindsay found her feet when she contributed to the writing on Speak, and as she rightly said, she was dealing with a lot in her personal life. There's a reason I made a point of bringing up her dad's controversies multiple times, and that's because Lindsay's second album, titled A Little More Personal, Raw, follows the main theme of issues she was having with her father. The lead single, Confessions of a Broken Heart, Daughter to Father, complete with a self-directed music video, shows just how much pain Lindsay was going through. The lyrics are a letter to her dad, who had just survived a car crash caused in part by him driving under the influence. Interesting fact, Lindsay recorded her vocals for this song in her trailer on set for Herbie Fully Loaded, and the co-producer of the song, Cara Diaguardi, revealed that if you solo the vocals, you can actually hear race cars, saying, "She had no time to do the record, so she would be on her lunch break. I stay for 14 hours on the set and would grab her for like 10 minutes at a time. The poor girl." That's the reality of young Hollywood. When they're hot, they're worked to death. It was 18 to 20 hour days. Reading into the lyrics of this song and watching the music video may be upsetting for some people, so I'd advise using your own discretion, but it was clear from this lead single that Lindsay wanted her music to take a darker, edgier tone and steer it away from the glitzy pop sound on Speak. Confessions was released in September 2005 and reached number 57 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart on the week of December 24th, 2005. To this day, it is her only entry on the Billboard Hot 100, but I think if more time and energy was spent on her music career, that wouldn't have been the case. Confessions was the only single from A Little More Personal, which was released on November 30th, 2005 and reached number 20 on the US Billboard 200 chart. It has since been certified gold for selling over 500,000 copies. Again, I'm going to be covering more of my opinions of A Little More Personal on a separate video over on my Patreon, but I will say it's a very different album, which did take me a little longer to appreciate than it took me to appreciate Speak. It features some beautifully written songs. And it's worth mentioning that Lindsay was credited as the main writer on 7 of the 12 tracks on this album. And this album also features 2 covers of songs by other artists, I Want You to Want Me by Cheap Trick and Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks. So out of 10 original songs, Lindsay wrote on 7 of them, whilst being busy with filming Herbie Fully Loaded, whilst being painted as a massive socialite party girl, and still not having reached 20 years old. Lindsay was working massively hard, and I don't think that was ever fairly communicated in the press. I mean, why would it? Talented actress goes above and beyond while simultaneously being milked by Hollywood? It was much more profitable to focus on the negativity around her rather than show her in a fair light, but that's just my personal opinion. It's really hard to stay completely unbiased when writing a script like this and seeing the timescale this was all on. Lindsay did do a reasonable amount of promotion for the album, appearing on MTV's Total Request Live, Ellen DeGeneres, and the 33rd annual AMAs. However, despite there being some really great potential follow-up singles on the album, none were released, and before long, Lindsay was back to focusing on non-music related business. Just like with Speak, the reviews for A Little More Personal didn't come without criticism. Some of it reasonable, and some of it just cruel. AllMusic gave it 3 stars out of 5, saying, "Lindsay Lohan clearly spells out her ambition in the title to her second album, A Little More Personal, Raw. She's going to shed the glitzy trappings of her debut, Speak, and dig down deep in her heart. letting feelings flood onto the page, and also going as far as to state that even though the album is far from being totally successful, it is an intriguing mashup of heart and commerce. And it does suggest one thing that Speak never did. Lindsay Lohan may have an artistic vision as a recording artist, which is indeed a huge step forward. However, Rolling Stone said Lindsay makes a fatal mistake on her second album. She tries to, express herself. There are some much more scathing quotes out there, and I'm not going to read them all, but I personally think the album was a brave attempt to evolve as a songwriter, and I'd really recommend giving it a listen for yourself. And really, from here on out, this is where talk of Lindsay's music career kind of dies out. By the time that the year 2006 rolls around, the idea of the public seeing Lindsay as a credible artist begins to rapidly fade from view. More controversies, stints in rehab facilities, friendship dramas, personal health issues regarding her weight, arrests and court dates. The next few years of Lindsay's life were very dark. As I'd like to focus on her music, if you'd like a more in-depth look into Lindsay's life in the mid to late 2000s, again, please check out Mila Tequila's video and follow-up video in the description. The only instance we see of Lindsay dipping her toes back into the music industry for many years would be in May 2008, when a song titled Bossy was leaked onto the internet. In response to the leak, Universal Motown would release the song to media outlets, and it's been said that this song was supposed to be a part of a third album which was never released. Bossy is an electro-pop number that was written and produced by Neo, who reportedly revealed that when he was asked to write for Lindsay, his initial thoughts were, Lindsay Lohan? I mean, I've written for Beyonce, Mary J. Blige, Rihanna, Celine Dion, and Lindsay Lohan? But I will say this, we gave her a quality record and she did a ridiculously fabulous job. I was so shocked I had to call her and apologize for what I was thinking because she did so good. I think the world is going to be surprised. To me personally, Bossy isn't Lindsay's strongest work, and many critics agreed that the jump from her previous sound was a bit of a surprise. The song received mixed reviews, but managed to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot Dance Club Play charts, her only song to date to do so. It wouldn't be for many years that Lindsay begins to slowly piece her life back together, moving to the city of Dubai around 2014 and making it her permanent home away from the world of Hollywood. She begins to expand her brand and opens nightclubs in several locations such as Mykonos and Athens. And the move also brings her closer to her family, including her father. "We're all in touch," she said in 2019 on The Howard Stern Show. "It just took me going to Dubai. Usually, when I have spare time, my family and friends come to visit, which is amazing." She also stated in an Emirates Woman interview, "I get more done because I don't have the scrutiny and fixation on what I'm doing every second. I work all the time. My mind never stops." This isn't to say that Lindsay hasn't had a few more controversies along the way. I feel as though I have to cover these issues because glossing over them doesn't feel right. During the Me Too movement, she said some things that she would later apologize for, and also in a now deleted Instagram video defended Harvey Weinstein, essentially giving off a vibe of, "he never did anything to me," which was rightly criticised in my opinion. There was also an incident involving Lindsay going on Instagram Live, and it isn't entirely clear what her intentions were, but they involved her approaching a family with a young child in the street and what appears to be her attempting to lead them somewhere until the mother of the family attacks her. It's a weird video, I genuinely can't wrap my head around it. Some people say she was trying to abduct the child, some people say she was trying to offer them a hotel room. It's odd, her behaviour was odd. And I believe after that moment, she began to truly focus on being productive in regards to her career again. Although, looking at her Instagram, it does appear she's very interested in NFTs and cryptocurrencies, so I don't really have a perfect conclusion. However, we did eventually get an answer to whether Lindsay would return to music. In 2019, her song Bossy had an unexpected resurgence as it was used in the opening credits of Lindsay's new show, Lindsay Lohan's Beach Club. A show based around Lindsay and her staff opening and running her beach club in Mykonos, Greece. When asked if she would make a return to music following Bossy's recent rise in popularity, Lindsay didn't really give a straight answer, stating, "My sister is coming out with her record and I want to support her in that. We've talked about writing together and maybe doing something together if we have season 2, or just in general." Lindsay Lohan's Beach Club was not renewed for a second season, but in the year 2020, Lindsay surprised everyone by announcing that she was making a comeback. Lindsay released the single Back to Me in April 2020, which was met with a fair amount of praise. It's not my personal favourite from her. I think it's quite an agreeable pop song that featured styles that were both on trend and also a little bit dated in the same 3 minutes, but it's catchy and people were rightfully excited. Lindsay was back! And then she dipped. She hasn't released any follow-up as of yet, but when speaking to Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen at the end of 2019, she made it clear that her plans were for her to return to Hollywood for 2020, the plans for which were derailed due to certain current events. So the future for Lindsay both in full-time acting and music still remain to be seen. I for one would accept her never returning if it meant her being completely happy, as she's gone through a hell of a lot and she's still only 35 years old. If or when Lindsay returns, I personally hope she and her team finally let her musical side flourish alongside her acting, if not perhaps actually making it her priority instead. Her voice has such pleasing raspiness and qualities that would really suit a mature folk pop kind of sound. Perhaps she could even look to emulate the musical styles of Alanis Morissette or Stevie Nicks. And I personally think this would go over well and surprise some of her harshest critics. I think she could make a great pop record if Back to Me is anything to go by, but leaning into a more mature sound could show quite a lot of personal growth for someone that's lived such a colourful life. Thank you so much for watching. This was my first ever proper video essay, so if you have any feedback or suggestions for videos you'd like to see, then please let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this interesting, and if you haven't checked out Lindsay's music before, why not give it a try? I've left my personal favourites from both albums in the description if you'd like to get a taste rather than just diving right in. In addition, my full reviews of both albums will be over on my Patreon and available on all tiers. Thanks for sticking through to the end, and I'll see you next time.